The Subnautica 2 developers just dropped this video where they showcased some gameplay and talked about what to expect from this next title. But at the end of the video, they asked an intriguing question.
What do you want to see in Subnautica 2?
Now, the community has been asking for many different things, but in this video, I'm going to go over some of the things I believe Subnautica 2 should add to be the most fun and immersive Subnautica title to the franchise. So, let's just get right into the shenanigans. Now, before I begin, there's one thing I want to make clear. These requests are my own personal opinions. If you don't agree with them, that is completely fine, and I implore you to comment below why you dislike certain requests I make. All I ask is that you be critical, not hateful. It's not because I have an ego made of brittle glass. It's because it'll be good for the developers to take into consideration. If the developers can see exactly what people like and don't like as core values, they might be able to use this as inspiration to add even cooler things to Subnautica 2. And with that out of the way, let me introduce one of the biggest things I'd want Subnautica 2 to have. Now, I mentioned this before in a couple other videos, but allow me to explain in full depth. One of my favorite immersive features about Subnautica is how creatures react to certain elements of their environment, and even turn them into useful game mechanics. For example, the stalkers chew on metal debris, which causes them to lose their teeth, that the player can collect and use for blueprints. Reefback leviathans move slow and steady at the top layers of the ocean, allowing barnacles to grow, which the player can harvest for silver and copper. Sea treader leviathans walk along the ground, kicking up debris and revealing hidden shale outcrops. Gasopods release sacs when they feel threatened, and the player can harvest these to make torpedoes. These kind of features make the world feel alive and realistic, on top of having gameplay functions. But the weird thing is, the deeper you go, the less of this you see, and instead you just find fish aimlessly walking around with simple and predictable interactions. Okay, this isn't completely true. The lava zone does have fire-breathing leviathans and power-sucking coochie worms, but the main culprit here is the Lost River. The creatures here are either simple food sources, hostile threats, or just straight up useless. Which sucks because this is one of the coolest looking areas of the game. This design choice may have been due to budget or time restraints, but I would have loved to see Subnautica have creature interactions like this from all areas of the game. Now you might be thinking, well Mono, it's very hard to come up with original and unique concepts for the environment to interact with each other, and well yeah, I admit it could probably be pretty difficult. But I do have a couple of ideas that I think could work. Create a biome with little to no light, resulting in a bioluminescent ecosystem similar to the blood kelp zone. However, make these fish super sensitive to light, either swimming away in the presence of it or outright being blinded. Remember the lava lizards and how they take lava baths? What if after surfacing, you could shed their shell and have a new material to craft with? There's many different types of predatory creatures in the game. What if some of them occasionally have territorial battles, where they leave behind random body parts that the player could use? You know how dolphins in Minecraft will show you shipwrecks and even buried treasure if you feed them cod? Why not have a similar mechanic with another creature, for example, the rock punchers? You can have a certain resource that only spawns naturally as a large node, and that the only way to harvest it early game is to feed or even tame a rock puncher to start breaking apart the node. Now this specific mechanic might already be coming, since the developer vlog actually showcased this little guy headbutting a rock, which might serve a similar in-game purpose. But I'd still like to throw it out there for the developers to consider. But yeah, interactions like these is one of the things that makes Subnautica special, and I think they should really be trying to double down as much as they can on this idea in this title. If Architect technology or something similar will be present in Subnautica 2, why not let us utilize them? Subnautica has a huge variety of alien technology that we can scan, but has no other purpose than to be a simple lore drop. Which isn't terrible, but I believe they could do much more with this. Now, I can understand not giving us an alien rifle or even a whole-ass doomsday device, but scanning them should at least give us the ability to add them to our base as decoration. Okay, if I'm being honest, I just want to craft one for my own cynical amusement. But back to utilizing alien technology. Remember Alan's floating arms at the end of Below Zero? What if you could scan them and craft a prawn suit module that allows you to carry 2 extra floating arms? Or what about all the various alien power sources we can scan? What if we could use the data to upgrade our own power sources? And to expand on this even further, what if they introduce more new materials like the ion cube that can only be harvested through interacting with all this alien technology? This might be asking for much, but I just feel like if they're gonna make the asset, why not let us use it? Leviathans are a very big part of Subnautica. They challenge the player with a threat of death, making us think twice before entering new areas, and giving us intense moments when we come into contact with them. Now, I like this philosophy a lot. However, there is one tool in Subnautica that I think ruins this gameplay philosophy, and it's the stasis rifle. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think that the stasis rifle should necessarily be removed from the game. After all, the player does have to earn it by scanning parts in some of the most dangerous biomes, then gather all the materials to make it. But I think if the developers want to make the gameplay more interesting, there shouldn't be a singular tool to help you in all Leviathan situations. Allow me to explain. What if the Leviathans in Subnautica 2 had different strengths and weaknesses that the player could take advantage of? For example, what if there's a Leviathan that is immune to the stasis rifle shot, but as a weakness, it is super sensitive to light? The player could take advantage of this biological flaw and defend itself from the Leviathan by flashing a bright light, causing the Leviathan to panic or even retreat. Or what about an electrical Leviathan that can't be shocked by a parameter defense system, but happens to have a very sensitive sense of smell, allowing the player to release a gas pod to overwhelm its senses so the player can get away. This would make the data from scanning creatures even more useful, since the developers can sneak in little hints on how to actually counter these creatures within the data entries. Not to mention, if they wanted to stay away from giving the players actual weapons to defend themselves, I believe this would directly fit into their gameplay philosophy. Now on to my final point, the most important point. Developers, if you listen to none of my requests, take this one with serious consideration. We need a smug fish. A ridiculously smug fish. Like, comical levels of smug. I want the smug level to be unreadable. I want this fish to redefine what it means to have a smug expression. All jokes aside, I think the most important feature the developers should consider adding is proximity chat. I know in a previous video I expressed that I didn't think proxy chat would help that much with horror, but that doesn't mean I don't think it should be added to the game. I find proxy chat systems to be very fun to play around with, and I think it could fit well into a Subnautica title. Now, I'm just gonna go ahead and say, I don't really expect any of these changes to be included into the game, but I do hope the developers take some of these ideas into consideration or even repurpose them into what they believe is better for the game. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like and click this video where I talk about how multiplayer will influence the next Subnautica title. And for those of you asking for Red Plague Act 2, I promise I will drop it once somebody gives me access to the mod. Anyways, have a great day.